The children of Israel desired a king. They had long been led by judges and prophets, but they yearned for a change. They wanted a figurehead, a symbol of unity and strength. They wanted to be like other nations. They saw the grandeur and power of kingdoms around them and felt the need for a similar structure. They yearned for a visible leader, someone to guide them and fight their battles, a king who would lead them into war and bring them victory. God granted their request, selecting a man named Saul. He was chosen through divine intervention, anointed by the prophet Samuel. Saul was tall and impressive, a natural leader. His stature and presence commanded respect and admiration from the people. He began his reign with promise, winning victories and uniting the tribes. His early successes brought hope and a sense of unity among the Israelites. Saul's early days as king held great hope. The people celebrated his victories and believed in his leadership. He had the strength and presence to lead. His charisma and determination inspired those around him. The Israelites believed they had found the answer to their prayers. They saw Saul as the fulfillment of their desires for a strong and capable leader. But as time passed, the true nature of Saul's heart began to surface. His insecurities and flaws became more apparent, casting a shadow over his reign. The pressures of kingship weighed heavily on Saul. He faced numerous challenges and conflicts, both external and internal. His relationship with the prophet Samuel became strained. Saul's disobedience to God's commands led to a rift between them. The once hopeful reign began to unravel. The unity and strength that Saul initially brought started to crumble. Saul's internal struggles and external pressures created a turbulent reign. The people who once celebrated him now questioned his leadership. In the end, Saul's reign serves as a reminder of the complexities of leadership. The journey from hope to disillusionment is a tale as old as time. The Philistines, Israel's old enemies, gathered for war. They were a powerful force armed with advanced weaponry, including iron chariots. Fear gripped the Israelites, including their king, but not Jonathan, Saul's son.
Jonathan, filled with faith and courage, decided to attack a Philistine outpost. He believed God was on his side, regardless of the odds. Jonathan's daring raid threw the Philistines into confusion, creating chaos in their ranks.
The Philistine army, startled by Jonathan's attack, began to crumble. Seeing their opportunity, the Israelites, who had been cowering in fear, rallied and joined the fight. A decisive victory seemed within reach, but back at the Israelite camp, Saul remained paralyzed by fear.
He had been instructed by Samuel, God's prophet, to wait for his arrival before offering a sacrifice. As time passed and Samuel was delayed, Saul grew impatient. Doubt crept into his heart, whispering that God had abandoned him.
Saul, consumed by fear and doubt, made a fateful decision. He disregarded Samuel's instructions and offered the burnt offering himself. He believed that by taking matters into his own hands, he could secure God's favor and ensure victory. But his actions were not an act of faith, but of fear.
At that moment, Samuel arrived. He witnessed Saul's act of disobedience. The air grew heavy with the weight of Saul's transgression.
Samuel, his voice filled with sadness, asked Saul, "What have you done?" "You have acted foolishly. You have not kept the command of the Lord your God."
Samuel confronted Saul, his voice echoing with disappointment. Samuel's words cut deep, exposing the true nature of Saul's actions. Saul, blinded by his fear, had chosen to disobey God's clear instructions.
It is not merely a matter of a delayed sacrifice. It is a rejection of God's sovereignty.
Samuel explained the gravity of Saul's sin. Saul, in his impatience and fear, had placed himself above God, seeking to control the situation rather than trusting in God's timing and plan. Saul's disobedience had dire consequences. His actions, driven by fear and impatience, led to a series of events that would forever alter the course of his life and the history of his kingdom. The kingdom, which had been promised to him and his descendants forever, would now be taken away. This promise, once a beacon of hope and stability, was shattered by his inability to follow divine instructions. His reign, once full of promise, would be marked by turmoil and strife. The peace and prosperity that could have been his legacy were replaced by conflict and uncertainty, casting a long shadow over his rule. Saul's story serves as a stark reminder that disobedience to God, even when motivated by fear or good intentions, carries a heavy price. His failure to wait for the prophet Samuel and his decision to offer sacrifices himself were acts of defiance that could not be overlooked. Saul's choice had far-reaching implications. His disobedience set off a chain reaction that affected not only his own destiny, but also the future of the nation he led. The people, who had once looked to him for guidance and protection, now faced an uncertain future. It not only affected his own destiny, but also the future of the nation he led. The unity and strength of the kingdom were compromised, leading to internal strife and external threats that could have been avoided. His story stands as a timeless warning about the dangers of pride and the importance of humble obedience to God. Saul's downfall was a result of his inability to submit to divine authority, a lesson that resonates through the ages. It reminds us that true leadership requires humility and a willingness to follow a higher calling, even when it challenges our own desires and fears. Section 7. True Leadership. Saul's story is not just a tale of failure, but a powerful lesson on true leadership. True leadership is not found in outward appearance or military prowess. It is found in humility, obedience, and a willingness to follow God's leading, even when it's difficult or doesn't make sense. True leaders don't shy away from seeking guidance and counsel from others. They recognize that their authority comes from God and is meant to be exercised with humility and integrity. Section 8. Obedience, the heart of faith. Saul's downfall underscores a fundamental truth. Obedience is at the heart of faith. It is not enough to simply acknowledge God's existence or power. True faith is demonstrated through our willingness to surrender our will to His, to trust His plans, even when we don't understand them. Obedience is not about blind adherence to rules, but about a heart that desires to please God above all else. It's about recognizing His authority and trusting that His ways are higher than our ways. Section 9. The cost of impatience. Saul's impatience reveals another danger in the life of faith, seeking shortcuts instead of waiting on God's timing. We live in a fast-paced world, accustomed to instant gratification, but God often works in ways we don't expect and on a timetable we don't understand. When we grow impatient and try to force God's hand, we risk missing out on His best for our lives. We might even end up making choices that lead us away from His perfect will. Section 10. Choosing faith over fear. Throughout history, the battle between faith and fear has been a central theme in many stories and teachings. It is a timeless struggle that resonates with each of us as we navigate the challenges and uncertainties of life. Saul's story is ultimately a story of two choices: faith or fear. In the face of overwhelming odds and daunting challenges, Saul allowed fear to dictate his actions. His fear led him down a path of disobedience and despair, showing us the destructive power of letting fear take control. Jonathan, facing the same enemy, chose faith and acted with courage. He trusted in God's promises and stepped forward with confidence, leading his people with bravery and conviction. Jonathan's faith was a beacon of hope, demonstrating the strength and resilience that comes from trusting in a higher power. Saul, consumed by fear, chose disobedience and faced devastating consequences. His story serves as a cautionary tale, reminding us of the importance of faith and the dangers of allowing fear to dominate our decisions. Fear can paralyze us, leading to choices that we later regret. We all face giants in our lives, situations that tempt us to doubt God's presence and provision. These giants can take many forms: financial struggles, health issues, relationship problems, or personal insecurities. They loom large, casting shadows of doubt and fear over our hearts and minds. In those moments, we can choose to follow Saul's path of fear and self-reliance, or we can choose Jonathan's path of faith and obedience. The choice is ours. Let's choose faith. By choosing faith, we open ourselves to the possibility of divine intervention and guidance. We acknowledge that we are not alone in our struggles and that there is a greater plan at work. Let's choose to trust God, even when we don't understand, knowing that His ways are always best. Trusting in God requires surrendering our fears and doubts and embracing the peace that comes from knowing we are in His hands. It is a daily decision to walk in faith, to believe in His promises, and to rely on His strength. By choosing faith over fear, we can face our giants with courage and hope, knowing that we are never alone.